Okay, going for a take. And action.
We are going for a take where we get the take of those who work in the film and TV industry on a specifically chosen movie and their time in the business.
Yep, and today's take is going to be on the new Alex Garland film, Civil War.
And in this take, we're joined with the multiple award-winning director. He's worked on projects across the globe. Some of his credits include Waterloo Road, Vera, Hollyoaks, and many more. It's Khurrum Sultan.
Thank you. That's a very lovely intro.
Yeah, it's a joy to have you here, dude. Yeah, obviously that we work together, so we know a little bit about each other. Yeah, it's just a pleasure to have you here, man.
I appreciate it.
And now it's a moment where we turn the camera on you.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be in front of it?
Very happy, thank you. Yes, very scary.
So, what did you think of the film?
Good Lord, what did I think of the film? I think the main thing to sort of put across is that it hit me more than I thought it was going to hit me. And I think the main thing to say is that there are very few films that actually have an emotional impact. And very few dramas that have that emotional impact. And this one, it just completely blew me away. I would say there's a lot of things that I felt were very close to home for me, especially. But yeah, it was one of those films where you walk away and it just confuses you in the sense that you think this is way too real for what it is, really.
Yeah, and I think that was like the message behind it for me. It was like, this is a real life scenario, like this can happen, and you have the Western Front trying to take over or get rid of the president, and the shots and the footage you're watching, it's like you could be placed in that area and watch that happen in front of you and almost be like a journalist, like making notes about it. And that was what made it scary, is because of the truth behind it.
I mean, it's happening already in so many countries around the world. But to see it at home in America or in the UK, in the West, just felt very surreal. There is a very possibility that could happen.
It almost feels as well, this was something that I was saying to my sister after watching it, was that it's a shame that there's a desensitization to images of people in other countries. And then when you watch something like this, just because it's American and it's Western or whatever, that feels more like like a feel factor, like empathization, is that a word? I'm gonna throw it in, with them as well. It's strange that it has to be a film like that for us to feel more deeply, maybe. I mean, when you said, like, for you it felt closer to home, was that because of like the countries that you've worked in, like over?
Yeah, so let me give you an example. So I've worked in a lot of hostile environments, and this one particular incident that really sort of stuck out for me was that I was in a country, and I was on top of a mountain. It's a beautiful country. I'm not going to say what country because I love the country, but a beautiful country. I was on top of this mountain, and I was taking pictures of the surrounding area because it was just stunning. And what I didn't realize was that below the mountain was a massive fence and a military base. And I didn't realize that I was shooting basically in the direction of the military base. And I couldn't read any of the signage because it was all in different language and all this stuff. So what effectively ended up happening was that there were screams and shouts that were coming from below, and a bus just sort of pulled up, a military bus pulled up right at the edge of the fence, and these soldiers got out with Soldiers got out with AK-47s and started effectively pointing them at me and screaming in a language which I didn't fully understand, and I just froze. So I was, what's going on here? And my translator said, "Just hold still, otherwise they're gonna shoot you."
Jeez.
I said, "All right." And we were trying to calm the conversation down, but they were just getting more and more agitated, and they were beckoning us over. So my translator basically said, "We have to go down. We need to go down there." So I went down there, and what ended up happening is that one of the soldiers pulled the gun through the fence to my head. And I said, what the hell is going on here? And my translator said, just don't panic, just don't panic. So what are they saying? So you don't want to know what they're saying. So please, for the love of God, if this is going to be my final hours, just let me know what they're saying. And he said to me that they're effectively saying that the way that we treat British spies is that we chop the heads off and we send the head to the embassy. But he said, don't panic, we're trying to figure it out here. And my translator was talking. They told me to get on my knees. They pulled basically the gun closer to my face. And in that moment, you're kind of in a stage where your life literally flashes before your eyes and you have no idea. And I thought that was just a thing, but it does. It flashes through your eyes and you think, oh my God, I don't even know how I've got into this situation. And then eventually what happened is that my translator said, listen, they want to see the pictures. I said, yep, I can show you the pictures. Yeah. You can literally have the camera. So I gave them the camera. They looked through the pictures and then effectively started laughing. I said, oh, okay, we thought you were, gonna, and then they pulled the gun out. I got up and then it was a bizarre situation where they were all very, very friendly. And I was like, I don't know what is happening. Can I please get out of this situation? And I was going, yeah, thanks for that, bye. I almost fainted. But what I'm saying to you is that the story within Civil War, there were moments within there which were so true to certain elements that I face in certain positions in certain countries that I've been in, that the only way I can put it is that when I was very much looking forward to the film. I've seen war films before, and there's been no sort of issue. This one, because it was from the perspective of a photojournalist and a journalist, it sort of, the only word I can say is it triggered me, and I do have PTSD. It didn't trigger me to the extent that my PTSD went a little bit bananas, but it did trigger me to a point where I was a little bit shocked. And the one thing I did was I went and watched it alone, which I shouldn't have done. I should have gone with somebody, because I didn't have anybody around me to talk about what had happened, and that manifested. So on the drive back, I just kept on thinking about it, and I had flashbacks to certain things that happened to me, and it just sort of got very, very, let's say, I was distraught. But then, because I knew it was a film and not real, and because it was within a made-up scenario, it felt easier to sort of pull yourself out of it. And I've gone through counselling and psychiatric treatment and things like that. So there were a lot of things and a lot of methods that I used to try and get myself back into reality.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, we've gone very deep.
No, that's
yeah, really appreciate you sharing the story and the vulnerability you do, because that's intense to experience. So much that where to even go with that one, so much to unpick.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say was the distance. You see, when in my opinion, when I watch a lot of war films, there's a disconnect. It's like when you're watching it, there's a disconnect between you as the audience and what you're watching on screen. The intimacy of the scenes in terms of how they were shot, the angles, the exposure in the scenes, it made it so that you felt like you're there. And the sounds definitely didn't help either, because the sounds were loud, they were violent. You'd think when there'd be quiet points, you'd be thinking something's not right here, something's gonna happen. And that was really interesting.
Like the realism of A24 films just express that sort of realism in such a way that no other filming cinematography would. There are certain scenes where the camera, I'm not sure if they did it in the editing or with an actual camera effect, but I remember this one scene where because they're journalists and they have to sort of block everything out and make themselves immune to what's going on around them. And when they do, the camera effect sort of faded everything else around them out and just focused on them. I'm not sure if anyone else noticed that, but that's what I recognized, and that's what it symbolized.
that's interesting, right? I think going on to the characters from that, in terms of the main characters, you've got Joel, Jesse, Lee, and they all represented a different phase of how war can affect someone. So, for example, Lee was very much like, there was this excitement that came from fear, and it's like he wants to, for me at least, it felt like he wanted to enjoy the life that he's living, because if he's not, he's got nothing.
It wasn't Lee. Lee was Kirsten Dunst.
No, not Lee. Sorry, Joel.
Yeah.
Lee, played by Kirsten Dunst, was very much like, she'd seen it all, so she didn't want it to affect her anymore. So she sort of put like a block between what was going on and herself, so she wouldn't experience the pain. And then you have, what's her name? The other girl.
In terms of the actress.
Yeah, well, Kaylee Spaney, her character was so innocent at the start, and you could see the excitement of, it's like a day out. It's going to be exciting. We're going to get some photos. And there's a scene where they're in a car wash, and you see her break down, because this is it. The distance closed between the photos that she'd seen and the reality of the situation. And I think that was really important, because by the end of the film, she became a bit like Lee in terms of she became distant, and she just takes the picture of the president when he gets killed. So, yeah.
I really liked how, remind me of the characters' names. What was the young girl called?
Jesse.
And what was the old man called?
Joel.
And what they represented. The old man said, I am everything. This place reminds me of everything that I can remember. When he dies, that's sort of like the past, forgetting the past. And the young girl being the future that the Kirsten Dunst's character has been training to become. Someone who is emotionless, can't feel, and is desensitized.
Yeah.
And I loved how those two characters represented those two things.
Yeah, it was interesting how, like, with Kirsten Dunst, she had that block and tried to remain like objective in terms of like the pictures that she was capturing. There's some sort of like quote or like ethos around a character was like, you take the pictures, you let the audience interpret the story. You give them the license to work out what's going on. All you do is just remain objective. And as soon as you started to not remain objective anymore, that's when all that exterior just broke down in that like last third act, when the young girl started to have a coldness and a sort of like, it was a reactivity to just take the picture without thinking and feeling at the same time.
And at the very end, I'm not sure if she did it deliberately, but she jumped into direct fire to take a photo, and the other woman, Kirsten Dunst's character, jumped in a way and sacrificed herself, and the young girl just took the photo of her.
Do you remember the line
dying.
she said at the start of the film? Jesse, played by Kelly Spaney, says, "Would you take a photograph of me if I died?" And at the end of the film, she takes a photograph of the person who she asked that question to.
Yeah.
Dying.
That moment was just like, for me, like.
But like, there are so many moments in this movie that I really enjoyed, because it showed both the beauty and the horror of war and conflict. Like when they were traveling to Washington, D.C., they stopped off at this middle nowhere, but they were outside at night. They didn't have a campfire set up, but they had the gunfire shooting in the sky, which sort of resembled like fireflies or a campfire, which they found comfort in looking at, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Were there any sort of like shots that you saw, like scenes particularly where that sort of polarity between the beauty and the horror of what was going on?
I think there's so much to sort of pick at this. I think it's a combination of a lot. The main things I would say that I absolutely love is that there wasn't much that was said. It was more out of what was seen, and that is a lot of what sort of war is basically. There's a lot of not seeing and a lot of how that affects you and how that creates you as an individual.
Mhm.
And I suppose as actors, getting to that point where, I assume that none of you have been to war, but getting to that point where you've got to war and how that affects you, it must be like what they as actors must have gone through to try and figure that out, because everything felt authentic within it. At no point did I feel that, oh, this is too surreal or too, it all felt real. And I think that's a combination of the sound. I think that's a combination of, there's moments, for example, where it's the Joel character where he's found out that, or the Sammy, is it the Sammy character, the old character who he dies basically, and they all have this emotional reaction to that, and the Joel character is just literally, just the pure pain of it. But you don't hear him scream; you see him screaming, and that raw emotion as tanks are going past and everything around him is happening, but you can feel his pain. There's moments where you don't need to hear it. And then similarly, the lead character is takes a picture of him, and then the contemplation of whether to delete it or not. Those are these little details that I think are so important for a character and that development of a character. And it's just incredible. And then it's the use of the old school technology. So the film camera versus the digital camera, and which one of them has it. And there's a moment where for example, they're in a shootout, and they drag one of the guys who's been shot into a safe area, and the younger character, I can't remember, Jessie, is it?
Jessie.
She's taking an angle and trying to shoot that angle, and then Lee sort of comes down to her level to see whether that's a good angle or not for her, and then realizes actually, you know what, it's not, and then goes back up. And it's those little moments where there's a man dying here, or almost dead.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out what angle would be right to capture the moment. So I want to just tell a story, if that's all right, just at that point. If that's okay. So a very good friend of mine who was a journalist said to me that there are certain things you need to understand when you're going to certain places in certain countries. And he gave me a picture, and that picture was of a old school bobby, and there was a person on the floor, and he was basically beating this guy basically, and it was an old picture, a very old picture, and it was just that, it's a very famous picture, and he was beating this guy up, and he said, could you make a story out of this? Could you make a story out of this? I said, of course I can. Police brutality, it's an innocent person and he's beating him. And he said, okay, that's great, but research is important. I said, all right. So I went away, I wrote something about the fact that police brutality, I researched police brutality back then, and I wrote something, I said, there you go, that's what I've written. He goes, yeah, that's good, that's great. But you didn't see it from the other angle. I said, what does that mean? And he showed me another picture from the other angle, and actually the guy on the floor had a gun, and the copper was trying to get the gun out, and he was a hero. So he was saying, and the lesson that I learned then was that there are two sides to every story, and we have the power as media practitioners and creatives to showcase either side. But for us, it is important to show the full story, not just part of the story. And that's what I learned. And it was so interesting to see Lee's character and the Jessie character and how they were trying to figure out what shot to take, how to take it, and that process and their thought process on that. And it was incredible. It was incredible to see that. And those little moments, like I say, they rang true as opposed to embedded in fiction.
Yeah, so you say like rang true in terms of like your own ethos when you're approaching your directing, like with the stories that you're telling. Like there's a quote from Garland where he was talking about wanting to keep this film as how did he word it? It's attempting to function like a reporter, like an old-fashioned reporter, which is not apolitical, it's just unbiased. So like when you're telling your stories, do you try and maintain like an unbiased kind of point of view and show the whole story? Or is there always like an element of, I'm going to show the whole story, but this is what I think?
So that's a very good question. So my background is in documentary.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do is that, especially when it comes to docs, is that I feel privileged to be able to tell those certain stories that have been told. They're not my stories, they're somebody else's stories. Or there's a subject matter which is incredibly important to understand the whole picture as opposed to just one side. And what I used to do is, well, I have stepped away from documentaries, is that I used to get consumed by the story, in the sense that, so I've covered everything from child prostitution all the way to illegal migration. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of the illegal migration story, to prove myself to certain people within a detention center, because they didn't want to speak to me, I incarcerated myself within the detention center to prove to them that I was prepared to tell their story and go through what they went through to tell that story. A lot of people say to me, it's almost like, do you know how actors have method acting? It was almost like method directing. But it was to go to that level to showcase to these people that, listen, I'm not here as a journalist or as a filmmaker. I'm here as a human being because I want to tell your story. I don't want to, manipulate it or anything. I want to tell it from this side and I want to tell it from that side. And it's important to say, as I say, important to show the whole picture as opposed to just pieces of it. And because of that approach, a lot of people tend to speak to me and I get a lot of access because I go that extra mile. And it's not for me about it's for me about trying to figure out how to tell the full story. And taking that sort of on board, I try and really push that within a lot of my dramas and a lot of the work that I do. So, for example, with Vera, before I went into Vera, ITV allowed me the opportunity to basically spend time with within a police precinct. So I did a documentary which was about a cold case murder, and what ITV did for me, so I self-shot that, and it was part of a bigger documentary series basically, so I was one director on that. So I self-shot it, and I got access to interview room scenes. So there was a lot of what I learned was how the real police deal with real suspects and how they have those conversations, really.
Cool.
And that really helped me sort of understand how a real police station works, to then be able to talk to my actors about how the reality of what a certain situation would be. So it gives you an extra layer of understanding. Now, all directors don't need to go through that, and all actors don't need to go through that. But for me, it was important because of the level of what the show was, that I needed to understand the reality to then be able to portray it on screen, if that makes sense.
So it's almost like, for example, if you're preparing for a role and you know that role, you don't have experience in certain elements and you can use other experiences, but you want to gain an understanding of someone from that position, it's about finding ways in doing so, like if you're playing someone in prison, speaking to someone in prison,
Yes, exactly, yeah.
and understanding their life so you can use that in your craft as a director. Wow, yeah, definitely.
Because I was always under the impression that these like war photographers and documentary makers always had to disconnect themselves to what was going on, and that's what they portrayed these press for.
I would 100% agree with you. You have to have this mental capacity to be able to distance yourself from the story. As I say, there are certain stories that I've told where which completely consume you. Like, for example, the child prostitution one. There are people that I've met and kids that I know I can't help, but it's about trying to figure out the root of, right, this is an important story and it needs to be told, because if I can tell this story, then hopefully something will be able to happen. And a lot of that research went over to the UNICEF, and they were able to get the police involved, and it helped a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's the bigger picture, especially when you're a filmmaker or a photographer or whatever it is. The point is that this is what is happening. If I can capture what is happening, or if I can document what is happening, and if it can go on and outside to a wider world, then hopefully that will help make some sort of difference or make some sort of change. What's interesting now, though, if we're getting into that sort of debate, is that journalists, I don't know if you've seen a show called Mr. Bates versus the Post Office.
I've heard about it. I know
Yeah.
someone who's
Yeah,
watched
you
it.
can watch it. It's on the list. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how actually drama has helped make a difference and make a change. Whereas journalists have tried for such a long time, but the needle wouldn't move. But the fact that a drama had to do it.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that there are stories which are out there, which are so fundamentally important that if you want to make a difference and if you want to make social change, it can. I don't know if you know about Shamim Abadoy Chenoy, but her film, what was her film? It was the Girl in the River. That film alone, it was about honor killings and in Pakistan and South Asia. And what was interesting about that particular short documentary is that it caused such a stir that the government had to change law to help protect women who are suffering from honor killings. So that's what I'm saying, that there is a power that media has. And if you're able to utilize that power to benefit, then it far sort of exceeds your own expectation and just making a documentary for the sake of making a documentary.
So bringing it back onto the film then, as a little wrap up of the film.
Yeah.
Usually what we do on the end of an episode is we rank the film out of 10. So Adam, if you want to start, out of 10, what would you give it?
Out of 10, maybe like a 9.
Oh wow, yeah.
I enjoyed the surrealism, the cinematography, how the camera shots symbolized the characters' mental states and whatnot, the characters themselves, the story. I thought it was pretty good. Give it a 9.
Yeah, a 9. Wow. I'm gonna give it an 8.7. It's nearly a 9. The reason it's not a 9 is because I don't even know, honestly.
Just like a gut feeling.
It's just like my gut is telling me 8.7, so we're gonna keep it as that because it was beautiful. It was impactful. To me it felt like a real eye opener, an eye opener to something that is happening in the world, and it is a real situation, and these things do happen and are happening. So to have a story on it that was that powerful and that impactful was a very good film. A24, you've done it again.
And follow that, I'm gonna bump you up. Wait, what rating did you give it?
I said 9.
Oh, damn.
Is
I'm
that
going
too
underneath
high?
you. Now I need to go higher. But nah, I think 8.8. It's almost a 9. But I think it was the same thing I said about Iron Claw. Same reason I didn't like June compared to like everyone else was that I like films that make me think and make me feel. I want both. One of the reasons I wasn't as keen on like Poor Things was it felt like a think film. I didn't feel much. Other people will have done. Civil War has stuck with me and will remain in my mind and want me to keep learning about certain stuff after watching it and keep feeling certain stuff when seeing images of conflict outside of something that's fictional as well. What did I say? 9? 8.8?
8.8.
8.8, yeah, let's leave it as that.
Yeah.
Go on.
I don't normally rate films because I think each of them are equally, but for this I will.
Cool.
I'd say an 11.
Oh, wow.
It's
Off the chart. Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because it's one that I've been waiting for a very long time. It's one that I knew about, and as I say, I've watched other war films before, but I walked away thinking I would like this to be the benchmark for more directors and more creativity to come out. I'm tired of the Marvel stuff. I'm tired of the regurgitated, evil villain, this and that. This was an incredible story, told so well, beautifully shot. The sound design was incredible. The acting was amazing. The level of understanding in terms of the wars and the way that people feel and the way that emotions were going, it felt real and it felt current. And I want to encourage more of this, basically. I suppose that's what I'm saying.
Question for you guys, in terms of acting, something I'm thinking about a lot at the moment, like I was saying, and for you as a director is, how to maintain that balance between making sure that you're playing the truth, but also not triggering yourself to a point where it's harmful to yourself. How does a director maintain that truthful environment but keep everybody safe? How do actors do the same?
Yeah, I mean, finding ways to escape, I think, is important. You know, music, whatever it is, which brings you out of the scene, something that's going to give you the feeling of feeling comfortable again. Because when you're in a scene, you don't want to feel comfortable because, or at least I don't want to feel comfortable because I need my heart to be racing. I need it to feel like this could go wrong. Otherwise, it's too safe. And therefore, when you're coming out of it, you want to feel like, okay, I feel safe now. I feel like I've done it justice, and I need to take a step back and relax.
I guess that's the job of an actor, to make it dangerous, to feel it, no matter how dangerous it can get. I guess you also have to keep in mind to also protect yourself and your scene partners, while also balancing that danger. But I wonder how your job as a director.
It's a very interesting and a very good question. So what I tend to do is that I try to be as collaborative as possible, and I'm prepared to. And the way that I say it is that my job is, every actor is completely different, and some like to be told what to do, others like to go a little bit more in depth. So it's about me understanding who that person is, and especially if it's a certain role or a certain emotion or a certain beat that needs to be hit. It's about me working with the actor. So your safety net should be me, basically. That if we're talking and we're trying to understand the character, I am that guy or that person who is going to be shielding you from everything else. It's just between me and you at that moment. If you want to take it to a certain level, as long as it's safe and it's not breaking any safeguarding rules or anything like that, and you're not putting yourself in danger, physical danger, then it's for me to try and work with you, basically. It's about understanding that moment, and it's about understanding where we are in that moment, and how can I help you get to that moment. Are there things that I can do? Are there moments that you need to just go away and figure out yourself? Do you need to bounce something off me? The whole point of, in my mind, a director is that an actor shouldn't do things by themselves and alone. They should be able to bounce that idea and have the freedom to be able to discuss, well, actually, this point, I'm just not getting it, or what should I be doing, or what can I be doing, or this is what I want to be doing. How do I bring it to that level? And that's what I mean, that it's a collaboration. But safety is paramount. No one is going to be asking anybody to go in front of a train or anything like that. Mental stability is incredibly important, and nowadays needs to be even more discussed, because sometimes what happens is that you're so engrossed in a character, and you and the director and you guys work together to build this character, and then suddenly it's over and it's finished, and you're just expected to go away and just
where does it go after that? How do you switch to a next scene, which is like now an hour before the mental breakdown that your character has?
But that's fundamentally important for a director to also understand. That right, if you're going through a certain moment in this particular scene, and then suddenly you have to be in another scene, is to then allow you that opportunity to just decompress, to then realize that right, we've just done something quite heavy, which has really taken quite a lot out of it. So the scheduling should be as such, where it gives you that time to be able to decompress and then come back into it, really. But that is something that a director will understand through the scheduling, and then try and work with the ADs to make sure that it's not back to back, basically.
Wow.
So it is fundamentally important. And then you can also have those discussions. That's what I mean, that often actors and directors seem to think that they're all alone. We're working alone in this world, but actually it's a collaboration. And the director may not even know. So certain things that I love is that when I've seen a scene, we've been looking at it for ages, months and months and months, we've been deconstructing it, the character is there. But then the great thing is that you have an actor coming on board with fresh eyes and going, actually, do you know what? This character, the way that you're saying is interesting, but actually I thought of it from this side. And then it's an open discussion, really. You know, we've had loads of those on set, about certain elements of your character and the way it's, he's come together. So I think having that open dialogue, having that open discussion is fundamentally important. And that's where the safety element comes into it. So I assume that Alex would have gone through a lot of stuff with Kirsten and all of these individual characters. It's like, I was reading an article where he was saying that with the Jesse character, each of the pictures are real pictures that were taken, but because the film camera wasn't allowing the light on set to come through, what was happening was that she was getting, I think it was the cameraman or whoever, they were going through the whole process over and over again because they'd done it so many times, but saying, right, I want to take that picture, I want to take that picture, and moving this individual from side to side, taking these pictures of where they want to do it. So it's trying to understand within the parameters that you have is how do I as a director work with the actor, and what is that actor's threshold, where do they want to go with it, and then trying to be that guide to say, once you've gone there, come back now. Come back, it's all right, don't worry about it.
So what do you look for in a scene?
I think the main things that that fascinate me and that really grab me are when I'm looking at a scene and an actor just encapsulates the emotion and the beats and the tone and the arc of where the story and the character is in that moment. It's not one-dimensional, it's multi-dimensional. And you're watching that and you're thinking, wow, what you've done is you've taken just the words on the page and you guys have brought them to that level where I'm not watching, I'm not watching that, I'm not watching you as people, if that makes sense, or as your personalities. What I'm watching is I'm watching a character come to life. And I think that for me is where the magic is, where you watch something and you think, oh my God, that just moved me. There have been moments, there's been moments where you think, wow, that is something, But what I'm saying is that is the sign of what I'd like to say is that's magic. When you see the magic happen in front of screen in front of your eyes, you think we've gone beyond what I could have even thought of in my own mind, and you guys have created a character and you've taken it in a direction which is just so beautiful, whether that's showcasing anger or showcasing certain levels of sadness or emotion. You're making it your own at that point. And every single scene, if we've worked together and we've collaborated and it's in front of me, I think that is the beauty of it, is to when you've been working on it for such a long time, and then you suddenly see it come to life, you think, I just can't contain myself. So that for me is the joy, basically, is watching you guys, bring certain emotions and scenes and characters to life in front of me. That is where it is. And you've taken the direction and you've understood the story arc. It's what more could a director want, really? Yeah.
You mentioned collaboration a lot, and in terms of like your approach to directing and stuff. When you were starting as a director, were there key like mentors or like influences, films that you watched? I know you mentioned like Jurassic Park, so I'm so intrigued. Like, what were those things that have like shaped who you are and how you approach stuff now?
So I'll just give you a quick overview. For people like myself, there wasn't really any route in the industry at all. And as a result, you had to try and make your own route, or you had to try and figure it out.
You say people like yourself?
From my background, South Asian,
Represent.
So there wasn't really any diverse routes or anything there that allowed me the opportunity to go forward. I'm not sure that, there are other people who have struggled through other elements. I'm sure you guys have gone through certain struggles yourself. So I'm not complaining about it. What I'm saying is that everybody has a path. There isn't a path there, but everybody has their own path. And it's about how you kind of try and understand that journey and bring that to light, really. In terms of mentors, the only person I had was my parents. So my parents were my mentors growing up. Everybody within the industry shut the doors on me. I remember there was an exec who I actually asked this exec, I said, my dream and my passion is to be in drama. I'll do anything to be in drama. How do I get into drama? And they turned around to me and literally said to me that if someone like you ever wants to get into drama, you better keep dreaming. And I completely collapsed, because I was like, how do I, if the route is not there, then how do I do it? Or if no one wants to help me, then what's the point? But ultimately you have a dream. And I think that dream then progresses you to where you need to be ultimately, eventually, no matter what. And the reason I say Jurassic Park is because that, for me, that was the first film I ever watched. I went with my parents to watch that film, and it was the first time in my life that I thought, holy moly, there's a flipping dinosaur in front of me. How is that possible?
Yeah.
And it's just that. And again, when I'm talking about magic and your mind is blown, you're like, oh, that's what I want to do. And that is for the first time in my life, I felt something where I was like, that's something impossible that has become possible. A dinosaur, you brought a dinosaur to life, and it's thrilling. And that's the sort of feeling that I want to give to other people. That's why it is such an important film for me, is because it made me feel something which I wanted to try and share with everybody, if that makes sense. So yes.
What a good first film as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's we love Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Wow. So what would be your mantra? What is your how do you live? Is there a saying you live by? Is there something that you think that sums up how I am as a person?
That's an interesting one. I think what I've learned is that no one will ever give you the chance, and no one will ever open the doors. No one will ever believe in you as much as yourself, basically. It's down to you as an individual and a person, how badly you want it, to try and go for it. And as I say, it's about the journey. So I've done everything from self-shooting to editing to trying to understand. And all of these, it's taken me 15 years, roughly, give or take. It's taken 15 years to get to where I am now in terms of drama directing. All that time I wanted to do drama, but there was I couldn't really. There was no access or route or whatever. And I get it, I understand it. It was me trying to prove myself to not only myself, but to the industry, to say, listen, I am here. I am somebody, trust me, believe me, take a chance on me, basically. And I think one of the mantras that I have is that there will be a lot of doors that are closed. It is up to you to knock them down, and for you to try and figure out which ones will open. And they will open. And it might take a long time for you to knock them down. But eventually, even if one slightly opens, take it and then use it, learn from it, and then push it to one which will fly open, basically. That is the rule in my head.
Wow, that's beautiful. that really is special.
You're all being very kind.
No, it's true.
You've been very fascinating.
No,
Yeah, I feel like I want to keep interviewing you.
I just want us to keep going.
It's nearly 10 o'clock, but
It's all right.
Excellent. Just to wrap it up then, film association game.
Oh, okay. So pick an actor or a director, and we're going to go around, and we're each going to say a film from that director or actor until there's only one of us left.
Yeah.
Okay.
And eventually you just drop out when you can't think of anyone.
Yeah.
You're going to keep it snappy as well.
Yeah.
Ben likes to take his time on it.
Okay. Let's go with. It has to be a director, doesn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Okay.
Let's do. Who has? Let's do Spielberg. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few
Yes,
there. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want to kick it off?
Jaws. Should have gone with Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
He did E.T., right?
Oh
Yes.
no, that was
Yeah,
the one I was
E.T.
going to say. Oh, I'm so bad with Spielberg films. I never really watched them much.
I bet you have, you just can't
Yeah, they just.
remember or put his name to it.
He does loads of stuff with Tom Hanks, doesn't he?
Does it?
Oh no. Yeah, I'm going to drop straight out, to be fair, dude. I'm
Oh
out.
no.
Oh, it's back to me now.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park 2.
Right, so we've had Jaws, we've had Jurassic Park, we've had
E.T.
E.T. what was the one with the war one? Oh my god.
This is what happens.
That's
every
what
time.
I've got in my head. That's what I really want.
20 like on IMDb usually, but then like the game comes and I'm
What is
like,
it? Gone. Completely gone. Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's
say
very bad.
5 seconds left.
Oh no.
And then it's like,
I just blanked. It's completely blanked.
Oh no.
No, I'm blanked.
as soon as we move on to Ben.
Schindler's List.
No,
Um,
that's devastating.
Oh, that's bad.
Sugar.
Oh, we can't
I
let
had
Ben
one,
win
but now
again.
it's gone. I literally had one and it's gone.
You said that last time when you went out.
I'm not joking, I had one.
5 seconds. 4,
What's it called? Oh.
3. I'm sorry, Luke. 2,
I'm
1. I'm up.
Denzel.
Ben wins again.
Terrible.
What's the
game.
one where it's his life?
Oh,
Oh, recently with Paul
Yeah,
Dano,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
amazing. It's such a good film.
what's it called?
I watched it on the airplane.
I've been trying to think about that the entire
Literally
time.
sent
what
my
the
message
name
to my
was.
mum being like, you need to watch this. No idea. Oh,
I was trying to think of John Williams scores, because John Williams has worked with Steven Spielberg a lot.
Yes, that's
with
right.
you.
I went to an orchestra recently for John Williams and it was
Is
good.
that film?
And that's how I know them.
Right,
Schindler's
well,
List,
let's wrap it up then.
The song from Schindler's List, I can't remember what it's called, but that is powerful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right, it's been a pleasure again.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your honesty,
my
speaking from
pleasure.
your heart and your backstory as well.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
man, it's good to have you on.
It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Appreciate it,
Pleasure.
dude. That's
Thank you
enough.
very much. Thank you for coming, man.
Peace out. That's take 5.
Take
Take
5.
Take
That's a
5.
wrap.
Woo!